Wish daylight would come. I'm beginning to feel pretty chilly. How about you? Hello there. You haven't gone to sleep, have you?
No, I'm not asleep.
Well, you might have dozed off. I did a while ago. Eyes refused to stay open any longer. Couldn't imagine where I was when I woke up. I had forgotten all about the damn wreck.
Fortunate to be able to sleep. I wish I could go to sleep and forget all of this.
Come now. You mustn't keep thinking about it. That won't do any good. Brace up. We're sure to get out of this mess, all right? I've got it figured out. You know how long a time it was between the time we hit the derelict? It was a derelict we hit, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Well, the wireless was going all the time, if you remember. And one of the officers told me we had lots of answers from ships saying they were on their way to help us. One of them is sure to pick us up.
In this fog?
Oh, this'll all go away soon as the sun goes up. I've seen plenty like it at my country place on the Connecticut shore. Maybe not as thick as this one, but nearly as bad. And when the sun came up, they always disappeared before the morning was over.
Forget we're down near the Grand Banks, the home of fog.
I must say you aren't a very cheerful companion. Why don't you look at the bright side? The Grand Banks. Well, I refuse to be scared.
I have no intention of making our situation seem worse than it really is. I have every hope that we will eventually be rescued, but it's better not to expect too much. It only makes disappointment more bitter when it comes.
I suppose you're right, but I can't help being optimistic.
You remember how downcast you were yesterday when we failed to hear any sound of the ship? Today is liable to be the same unless this fog lifts, so don't hope for too much.
Yes, but you're forgetting the fact that there was no sun yesterday. That kind of weather can't last forever.
Perhaps you cannot see the sun on account of the fog.
I'll admit, I did feel pretty dismal yesterday after that terrible thing that happened.
You mean after the child died?
Yes, I thought that woman would never stop crying. Oh, it was awful. Her cries and the fog, and not another sound anywhere.
It was the most horrible thing I've ever seen or even heard of. Never dreamed anything could be so full of tragedy.
It was enough to give anyone the blues, that's sure. Besides, my clothes were wet and I was freezing cold. You can imagine how merry I felt. Not that they're any drier now, but somehow I feel warmer.
So you think the child's death was a terrible thing?
Of course, why don't you?
No.
But you said just a minute ago
Well,
that...
this is speaking of the grief and despair of the mother. But death was kind to the child. It saved him many a long year of sordid drudgery.
Why, oh Noah, I agree with you there. Everyone has a chance in this world. But we've all got to work hard, of course. That's the way I figure it out.
What a chance had that poor child? Naturally sickly and weak from underfeeding, transplanted to the stinky room of a tenement or the filthy hovel of a mining village? What glowing opportunities did life hold out that death should not be regarded as a blessing for him? I mean, if he possessed the ordinary amount of ability and intelligence, considering him as the average child of ignorant Polish immigrants, surely his prospects of becoming anything but a beast of burden were not bright, were they?
Well, of course not. But
If you could bring him back to life, would you do so? Could you conscientiously drag him away from that fine sleep of his to face what he would have to face? Leaving the joy you would give his mother out of the question. Would you do it for him, individually?
perhaps not, looking at it from that standpoint.
There is no other standpoint. The child was diseased at birth, stricken with a hereditary ill that only most vital men are able to shake off.
You mean?
I mean poverty, the most deadly and prevalent of all diseases.
Oh, that's it, huh? Well, it seems to be a pretty necessary sickness, and you'll hardly find a cure for it. I see you're a bit of a reformer.
No. There are times when the frightful injustice of it all sickens me with life in general.
Well, I find life pretty good. I don't know as I'd change it even if I could.
Spoken like a successful man. For I'm sure you are a successful man, are you not? I mean in a worldly way.
Yes. You might call me so, I guess. I've made my little pile. But it was no easy time getting it, let me tell you.
You had some advantages, did you not? Education and plenty to eat and a clean home and so forth?
I went to high school, and of course had those other things you mentioned. Look, my people were not exactly what you would call poor, but we were certainly not rich. Why do you ask?
You think you would be successful and satisfied with life if you had started with handicaps like that poor dead child would have had to contend with if he had lived?
Oh, I don't know. What's the use in talking about what might have happened? I'm not responsible for the way the world is run.
Supposing you are responsible.
What?
I mean, supposing we, the self-satisfied, successful members of society, are responsible for the injustice visited upon the heads of our less fortunate brothers in Christ because of our shameful indifference to it. We see misery all around us and do not care. We do nothing to prevent it. Are we not then, in part at least, responsible for it? Have you ever thought of that?
No. No, and I'm not going to start in thinking about it now.
I see. It's a case of what is Hecuba to you that you should weep for her.
Hecuba? You mean the woman? You can't accuse me of any heartlessness there. I've never felt so sorry for anyone in my whole life. I was actually crying myself at one time. I felt so sorry for her. And by the way, she hasn't made a sound since it got dark last evening. Is she still asleep? Can you see her? You're nearer to her than I am.
She's very still. She must be asleep. I hope so, poor woman.
Yes. Little sleep will do her a world of good.
She's still with the child, the body of the child close to her breast.
Excuse my interrupting you, but have you noticed how light it's getting? It didn't strike me until you turned around just then, but I can see your face plainly, and, well, a few minutes ago I couldn't tell whether you were a blonde or a brunette.
If only this fog would lift.
It's going to live! Just wait and see! You'll find my optimism is justified. What was it you started to say?
I was saying, I suppose you've never seen this woman on board?
No. No, I was in the smoking room playing bridge most of the time. I'm not much of a sailor. I don't care much about the water. Just went over to Europe because the wife and girls insisted. I was bored to death, made an excuse to get away as soon as I could. No, sir. No, you you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm a businessman, pure and simple, and the farther I get away from that business, the more dissatisfied I am. I built it up from nothing. It's sort of like a child of mine. It gives me pleasure to watch over it. When I'm away, I'm uneasy. I don't like to leave it in strange hands. And as for traveling, a little old New York in the USA is good enough for me. You asked if I'd seen the woman. I don't think so because I never went down into the steerage. I know some of the first-class passengers did, but I wasn't so curious. It's a filthy sort of hole, isn't it?
It's not so bad. I spent quite a good deal of my time down there.
In your role of reformer.
No. Simply because I found the people in the steerage more interesting to talk to than the second-class passengers. I'm not a reformer. At least not in the professional sense.
Do you mind my asking what particular line you are in?
I'm a writer.
Thought it was something of the kind. I knew you weren't in business when I heard those socialistic ideas of yours. It's a beautiful idea, socialism, but not too practical. Will never come about. Just a dream.
I'm not a socialist. Especially just a humanist. That is all.
What particular kind of writing do you do?
I write poetry.
I see. Well, there's not much money in that, is there? No. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm beginning to feel pretty hungry. Is that a box of crackers there near you? I never thought hardtack could taste so good. Aren't you gonna have any?
No, I'm hungry. None of that poor woman takes my hunger away. Just to watch her every day in steerage playing with her little son who is now dead. Thinking he must have been the only child she ever had. The look on her face was so wonderfully tender as she'd been over him. What will I feel like now that death has robbed her of the only recompense for her slavery? It seems such needless cruelty. Why was I not taken instead? I have no family or friends to weep, and I'm not afraid to die.
Take things to heart too much. Just like a poet. Don't forget about it. Probably sooner than you will. One forgets everything in time. What a devil of a world it would be if we didn't. Funny thing when you come to think of it, I mean, how we happened to come together on this boat. It's a mystery to me how she ever got here. And then, how is it there's no oars in this boat, yet there's still plenty of food? You remember there was no lack of lifeboats, and after the women and children were taken off, I was ordered into one, and we were rowed away. Well, the damn thing must have got smashed somehow, for it leaked like a sieve, and in spite of our bailing, we were soon dumped in the water. I heard the noise of voices near, and I tried to swim to one of the other boats, but I must have got twisted up in the fog somehow, for when I did finally find a boat, and let me tell you, I was nearly all in about then. It was this one, you and she were in it. Now what I want to know is easily explained.
Have you ever become so sick of disappointment and weary of life in general that death appeared to you the only way out?
Hardly. What does that got to do with this?
Listen and you'll see. That's the way I felt. Sick and weary of soul and longing for sleep. When the ship struck the derelict, it seemed to me providential. Here is the solution I've been looking for. Go down with the ship in that small part of the world which knew me would think my death an accident.
You mean to say you were going to
I was going to die. Yes. So I hid in the steerage, fearing that some of the ship's officers would insist on saving my life in spite of me. Finally, when everyone had gone, I came out and walked around the main deck. I heard the sound of voices from a dark corner and discovered this woman and her child had been left behind. How that happened, I don't know. Probably she hid because she was afraid the child would be crushed by the terror-stricken immigrants. At any rate, here she was. I decided she was so happy in her love for her child that it would be wrong for her to die. I looked around and found this life on the main deck and left hanging there. The oars had been taken out, probably for extra rowers and some other boat. I persuaded the woman to climb in and then went up to the boat deck and lowered the boat the rest of the way into the water. This was not much of a task, for the steamer was settling lower into the water every minute. I then slipped down one of the ropes to the boat and cutting both the lines that held her pushed off. There was a faint breeze which blew us slowly away from the sinking ship until she was hidden in the fog. The suspense waiting for her to go down was terrible. Even as it was, we were nearly swamped by the waves when the steamer took her final plunge.
I hope you've abandoned that suicide idea.
I have. Absolutely. I think all that has happened to me is an omen sent by the gods to convince me my past unhappiness is past, and my fortune will change for the better.
Well, that's the way to talk. Superstition is a good thing, sometimes.
I had known the sufferings that poor woman was to undergo as a result of my reckless life-saving. I would have let her go down with the ship and gone myself.
Don't think of it any longer. You couldn't help that. I wonder what it was the child died of. I thought it was asleep. And I heard it choke and cough. And then she commenced to scream. I won't forget those screams for the rest of my life.
The child was naturally frail and delicate, and I suppose the fright he received in the exposure combined to bring on some kind of convulsion. He was dead when I went over to see what was the matter.
It seems to be getting considerably brighter. Maybe it's time for the sun to rise if we're going to have any sun.
It's just about this time yesterday when the poor little fellow died.
Let's not talk anymore about it. She might wake up and start screaming again, and I can't stand that.
He does not understand English.
She'd know we were talking about the kid just the same. Mothers have an instinct when it comes to that. I've seen it proved in my own family more than once.
Have you ever lost any of your children?
No, thank God.
Okay, well, thank God. Even if people do as you claimed a while ago, forget so easily.
You're not married, are you?
No.
Didn't think you were. People with artistic temperaments run more to affinities than to wives. I suppose you've lost those.
Did you hear that?
Hear what?
Just now when you were talking, I thought I heard the sound like a steamer's whistle.
By God, that is a steamer!
It sounded nearer that time. She must be coming this way.
If only this rotten fog would lift for a minute.
Let's hope it will. We run as much of a risk of being run down as we do of being saved while this continues. They couldn't see us 20 feet away in this.
Well, can't we yell or make some kind of noise?
You can hear us now. We can try when they get close to us. Cold the air is. Was it my imagination?
No, I noticed it too. I've been freezing to death for the last 5 minutes. I wish we had the oars so we could row and keep warm.
Did you hear that?
Hear what? The whistle? I heard it a moment ago.
This is a sound like running water. There. Can you hear it now?
Yes. Yes, I hear it, but what can it be? There isn't any water out here except what's under us. Ooh, God, but it's chilly.
The woman will be frozen when she wakes up.
sounds louder every minute, but I can't see anything. Damn this fog!
Perhaps you may be him, but I hardly think it could have drifted that far.
Good God! What is that?
Iceberg! Stay there! You will be in the water in a minute if you're not careful. There's nothing to be frightened over. Lucky for us it's calm, but we would be smashed to pieces.
As it is, we'll only freeze to death. Is that what you mean?
It is cold. Look how big the bird is. Let me try to push the boat away from it.
Ouch! My hands are freezing!
He's wasting effort on that. The boat is too heavy and you can get no grip on the ice. I never thought of that.
You never thought of what?
The steamer, man. The steamer! Think of the danger she is in. If she were to ever hit this massive ice, she would sink before they could lower a boat.
Can't we do something? We'll yell to them when they get nearer.
Oh my God, man, don't do that. This may be one of the rescue ships come to pick up any survivors from our boat. And if they heard any shots, they would think they were cries for help and come right in this direction. Not a sound if you have any regard for the lives of those on board.
Yes, but if we don't let them know we're here, they're liable to pass us by and never know it.
We can die, but we cannot risk the lives of others to save our own. She must be right on top of us.
She's going away. I am not going to be left here to die on account of your damn fool ideas. Ah!
You dear coward! You might have known what to expect.
I'll get even with you, you loafer, if we ever get to shore. She must have hit it after all.
No, that can't be it. I don't hear any shots. I know what it is. The bird is melting and breaking up. It was one of the pieces that fell in the water.
Well, it almost landed on us. I am not going to stand this any longer. We'll be crushed like flies. I'll take a chance and swim for it. You can stay here and be killed if you want to. Let me go! This is all right for you! You want to die! You want to kill me too, you murderer!
You fool! You cannot swim for 5 minutes in this icy water! Come. Be sensible. Act like a man.
seem to be getting quite near us again.
Yes, and a moment ago I thought I heard the sound of oars creaking in the oarlocks and striking the water.
Well, maybe they've lowered the boat.
There's the steamer now, and she could hardly be more than a quarter of a mile away. What luck!
There's a boat, you heard! Look! They were rowing straight towards us!
Hello there!
Hello!
Are you people off the Starling?
Yes! You see? I told you you'd find my optimism justified. I wish you'd forget that little unpleasantness between us. I must confess, I was a bit rattled and I didn't know exactly what I was doing.
I'd forgotten all about it.
Thank you. You certainly are a welcome sight.
You sure picked a funny island to land on. You should think so close to this bird. Cold, wasn't it?
We drifted into it in the fog and having the oars could not get away. About the same time we first heard your whistle.
You been sick?
She's been asleep, poor woman.
Where's the kid?
In her arms. How did you know?
Oh, we would have never found you but for that. Why don't you give us a shout or make some kind of racket?
We thought you would come in our direction to hit this iceberg.
But we would have passed you and never had an inkling.
Well, in the case of that kind, one has to take chances.
That was very fine of you, I must say. Most people would have only thought of themselves. As it was, if it hadn't been for that kid crying, we would have missed you. I was on the bridge with the first officer. We'd been warned about this berg, and when the fog came up, we slowed down until we were barely creaking. Stopped altogether every now and then. During one of these stops, when everything was still, I heard the kid crying, and I said to the first officer, "Sounds like a kid falling, doesn't it?" It kept getting plainer and plainer until there was no chance for a mistake. Weird too, it sounded with everything so quiet and the fog so heavy. I said to him again, "It's a kid, sure enough." How the devil did it get out here? I remembered. We'd been ordered to keep a lookout for any of the survivors of the Starling who hadn't been picked up yet. And he said, "That's probably some of the poor devils from the Starling." And told me I had the boat lowered. I grabbed the compass and jumped in. We could hear the kid crying the whole time, couldn't we, boys?
Yes, sir.
People checked